Heyo, welcome to week 3 of this GTNH playthrough. Last time I made a human cannon for myself using those bounce pads, but you'll notice it's very different compared to last episode. Despite its much smaller size, it's much more powerful compared to the last version. I was doing some research and some testing, and it seems like everyone just stacks these vertically in a one wide tower, but I guess no one realized they multiply their effect when horizontal to each other. So the most optimal setup I found is to make a 4x4 grid and then use a slab or something similar to step into them. The slab is effective because it provides the least amount of vertical gain while still being inside the path's hitbox, leading to a greater effect overall. This now completely dwarfs the old design and doesn't look like a stretched out wart on top of my base anymore. As always, marginal improvements every week, folks. Moving on to the real goal of this week, I decided to make use of my new player launcher to shoot myself over to the nearby mountain, where I spent about an hour gathering terracotta. The recipe is literally to crush one full block of terracotta into one clay dust, so I ended up mining about 2,500 blocks in that time, which is way overkill, by the way. You should not be mining this much this early or without any tools, but I did, and now I need to sit here and process it while I do other things in preparation for the bricked blast furnace, or the BBF. God damn, I can't get that right. The issue with making the BBF is that you need more than just the fire clay bricks to make it. You need quartz dust, gypsum, and calcite, and almost a stack of each too, or half a stack. Luckily, at some point, I've gathered all of these. I know this because I found at least one piece of each in my storage chest. So after a little research, I learned that I just need to take a trip to the mines to gather them up. Gypsum is located in the basaltic mineral vein north of my base. Quartz dust is just sand mashed in a mortar, and calcite is behind in the lapis vein I found last video. Before I set off to gather those, I needed to process the dust I had into bricks and then smelt them. So while they were being formed, I decided to do some base upgrading. Not the decorative kind, no. I'm still living like a goblin, making strange objects to worship in my little hole in the ground, but at least the apple of my eye gets a little bit more shiny every week. Firstly, the last video I mentioned having a problem with the alloy smelter eating up all the steam that I had in a minute flat whenever I use it. The solution I found is a multi-block quest called a Railcraft Tank, which can hold a lot of any fluid I choose. I believe it's intended to be used for creosote, but steam is somehow the same kind of liquid as water, so categorically it works. I looked up what I needed to make, saw the ingredients list, cried, made the parts needed to make the 3x3x4 size tank, and shut off all machines, moved my current boilers, and replaced the space with the new tank. Then hooked up boilers to the back of the new tank using some pipes, and even added a third for safe measure. Then raised most of my machines by a block for easier access and started up the system again. This bad boy can hold about 500,000 liters of steam, so if I ever need to use the alloy smelter in the future, this should be more than enough of a stockpile to prevent any insufficiencies. You didn't forget that the whole reason I'm here is to make a brick blast furnace, right? Because I got all the stuff ready while you were gawking at the wiring. After setting the fire clay bricks to process in my steam furnace, I set off to the different locations, gathered the materials, then I came back and used the NEI Autocraft to make my fire clay bricks and constructed my BBF. This makes one steel every 240 seconds, or 4 minutes for those who can't time, and produces ash as a byproduct like the small boilers do. It takes iron ingots as the input and uses 4 charcoal per steel made, so I might have to make more coke ovens in the future. Speaking of, you ever heard of a rainforest oak sapling? Because I didn't either until I needed to make one for a quest, and I can't tell if it's just a huge tree or if the world itself is very happy to see me today. This tree makes a lot of wood when chopped down, so while the greatwood trees were nice, this is simply better by leagues, and there's no chance it breaks the lumber axe since it's just a straight line of logs. This means infinite fuel for those coke ovens, which, again, I might need to find a way to get more of since I now have to deal with the boilers and the BVFs to keep running at all times. Did you hear the plurality in BBFs? Because I decided that with my literal mountain of clay dust that I should make a second. There's also a quest to double it again later, so I'll get around to that after I work out my fuel issue. For now, let me throw the kitchen sink at you. I learned that you can make fridges and a cooking setup to make your meals for you. That way it will take out the tediousness of needing to handcraft all the foods I need. So now I just gather a bunch of materials and fill my food backpack whenever I need more. This brings into question a few more things. I made a scythe to harvest those foods faster. It's the farming equivalent of the excavator and hammer. It's nice, if nothing else, but to make my life a little easier. Lastly, I experimented around with bees a little bit, and I don't see a use for them right now. If I need a material like iron or string or whatever, then I can just harvest different plants and go mine it in bulk. They might be more useful later, but for now they seem far too slow and far too complicated to make use of, especially with how I'm barely handling the steel production as it is. And that's it. What? Did you think there was more to this episode? I know they've only been like 10 minutes or so every week, but I've got stuff to do outside of this every week. I know this one was a little shorter than usual, but did you expect like an entire base remodel or something? Yeah, alright dude. You'll get that when Parrot Dash beats 9DP. So yeah, I decided to remodel and decorate the entire base this week. I made a small plot of farmland for each of the food crops I have and made larger dedicated farms for the wheat and cotton. I also made a small area for the bees and an empty space for any of those IC2 crops that I will mess with in the future, with room to expand. In the basement, I cleaned out a huge area to use for future machinery and fully opened up the front of the base to show that it's actually a hollow plane of grass being supported. I'm not sure how I want to continue this base, but for now I like the idea that it's almost an underground safe haven to work that's free of danger and rain. I'm only on episode 3 of this series, but I wanted to take a moment to thank you outside of the end of this video for watching if you've been doing so as I continue to play. I'm not very good, and I make silly decisions all the time. I also edit like crap, as some of you saw in the last video, but it really does a lot to me that at least some people are entertained enough to follow along with my videos. I hope to continue this series until the end, however far away that might be, and I'll try my damnedest to be consistent for your sakes despite my busy life. So, again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode and decide to come back again for next week. If you have any tips or advice, feel free to leave a comment below, and if you've enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. I hope you have an exciting rest of your week, and I'll see you again soon. Goodbye.